What's up, everyone? Happy Tuesday. Oh, shit. Look at that. We just dropped in to Epstein Island satellite. We got some special guests here, but kind of looks like the Nickelodeon emblem over there. Let me bring the guests in. We got our co-host from our astrology show, Casting Couch Astrology Podcast. Got Merlin.
What's up?
What's up? We missed you guys these past 2 Saturdays. Had some stuff going on at the bookstore, etc., etc. And so yeah, I thought we'd make it up with a nice show today. What's the occasion? It's Florida's birthday. Today's Florida's birthday. March 3rd, 1845 is when Florida became a state. We'd been a territory for a little bit, 24 years or so, since 1821. But we're going to be talking specifically about the date, like March 3rd, 3-3. That's right. 3-3-33. All right, before we get too spooked out, we've got another special guest. He's been making some big waves recently. He went on Alex Jones, but he's also my boss because I recently started working with him, and I'm excited to tell you about that cool collaboration. And without further ado, we're going to be talking to Brett Pike from The Classical Learner. All right. Yo, Brett.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm your boss, but I will say that the students absolutely love learning history from you, and I have the privilege of sitting in on the classes, and I consider myself a pretty good historian, but a wise man knows when he is outgunned, and I definitely tip my cap, so always happy to gain your perspective.
Oh, no, man. You're being too bashful. No, but Brett, tell us about Classical Learner. Like, what do you do, and what am I doing for you, and how can people check it out?
Yeah, well, I went back to 2018 when my son was being born, and that gives you purpose. And I remember I had woken up to the world a few years earlier, and I started to panic. How am I going to teach my son the truth about the world? And that started with writing books, but ultimately it became the Classical Learner Homeschooling Company. And what started as one class that I was teaching on propaganda for elementary school students, and that just turned out to be a home run. There was a lot of interest in that. And now it's turned into a company in which I consider us the most based and red-pilled education company, not just in the world today, but potentially in the history of the world. And what I do, what I'm great at, is I surround myself with great people. And as Henry Ford said, the great Henry Ford said, that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're not that smart. Because if you were, you'd make sure there were smarter people in the room so you could learn from them. And now I have amazing people like Dr. Longo and just great teachers. We teach live classes 5 days a week, all types of pre-recorded courses. And we're giving children an education so that you always hear, we got to wake people up, wake people up. Well, if you make sure they don't go to sleep in the first place, then they never have to be woken up. And that's what I do.
That's a great point. Yeah. Well, hell yeah, man. I thought you'd be a perfect guest for tonight because, hang on, March 3rd, Florida's birthday. What does it have to do with the education system and schooling? Is there any connection there? There's a huge connection there. We're going to be talking about not just Florida's birthday. Florida's birthday is the perfect diving board with which to approach this much deeper topic. The Yulee family. Not many people know about the Yulee family. The Yulee family very prominent in Florida history, in Florida's American history. And long story short, it was the Yulee family who helped take Florida from a territory to a state, full-fledged state. And not only that, David Levy Yulee, who we're going to be talking a lot about, David Yulee and his father, Moses Levy. David Levy Yulee was Florida's first senator, period, and America's first Jewish senator. His cousin, Judah Benjamin, was America's second Jewish senator or congressman. And they would go on to be high-ranking members of the Confederacy. So that's kind of what they're most known for. David Levy Yulee was also in charge of bringing the railroads into Florida. He's considered the father of the Florida Railroad. Lots and lots we can say about these guys. We've got to take it, one bite at a time. But essentially, among many things, the Yulee family was also very passionate about education. They were a big slaveholding family. They were involved in a lot of human trafficking in and around St. Thomas. They were one of the big lumber families. And right before Florida became an American territory, they went from the Caribbean, moved to Florida, and then boom, they're permanent American citizens, and all their, Caribbean, Sephardic ancestry is kind of obscured. But the overview on these guys, very important, powerful family in Florida, but nobody knows about them today. They have ruins of their plantations are still there today. You can go see. And what about the education, though? They were big on education. David and Moses, his father, were instrumental in the public schooling system. Most people think it goes back to Horace Mann. Is that his name? The first public school guy who pushed for public schools. Well, the Yulees were 15 years ahead of him, and they put it in practice before he even did. I think we're getting a echo on one of your headphones. Sorry. But yeah, so the Yulees were big on education. And what does this have to do with Epstein Island? Well, I've been doing I've been doing some interviews recently, and people love to hear about the Yulee family Epstein Island connection. We've all heard stories like, oh, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad prints all the school textbooks, right? Maybe that's overstated. Maybe it's exaggerated. We're going to try and, get down to the truth of it in this episode. But there's an even firmer connection between Epstein Island, St. Thomas, the Virgin Islands, and the public American education system through the Yulee family. Because before they moved to Florida, they lived right next to Little St. James. They lived in Charlotte-Amalie. St. Thomas, it's the same island, pretty much. Little St. James and Greater St. James are two little freckles that are like just off the coast of this slightly larger island. That's where the Yulee family's from. What does this mean? That Sephardic slaveholding families have been operating out of the Virgin Islands for hundreds of years. And they then went on to become one of Florida's most powerful families. And then we're behind the Confederacy in the Civil War. That's a totally different picture of history than we're normally given, especially in Florida schools. But that's the overview. We're going to be kind of going through some evidence and stuff, but yeah. Have you guys ever heard of David Levy Yulee or Moses Levy before tonight or last couple weeks?
So the first time that I heard about it was when you did an interview with Jake Shields. And it was so mind-blowing to me because you always hear rumors about who owned the slave ships, but for some reason, you never hear the names. And you would think this would be a historical point that a society that's seemingly obsessed with a slavery narrative would want to get to the bottom of. So you think, well, why is it that we never hear the names of the people who own the ships? And another thing that you pointed out, and I'm sure you'll get into it later, is one of those families that was a major slave holding family, and people will get a kick out of this. I won't have to tell you what they do because you'll already know, was the Monsanto family. And I learned that from you. We'll talk about them tonight. We'll talk about the Yulees. And it's really fascinating that they're connected to not only the education system, but they were a major slave, not only holding, but slave trafficking family. And it was being done out of Little St. James, which of course is the island that Jeffrey Epstein has now made so famous. And all of this comes together, and it's so relevant because the education system today, and we'll talk about how it got here, but it really uses a cherry-picked and very much fake narrative about the history of slavery to control modern culture, to control modern politics, to keep people pitted against one another, to turn some people into permanent victims, a permanent victim class, and to turn other people into a permanent shamed oppressor class. And this is all by design to divide and conquer society. So we could talk about that angle. And if you guys also want to get into it, because I think it all ties together, I'd also love to talk about what was going on with the transatlantic slave trade, what was going on in North America, what was going on in South America, what was going on with the Muslims as well in the Ottoman Empire, what was going on the sub-Saharan slave trade, the sub-Indian slave trade, because the truth is that slavery was an institution that was practiced across all people for thousands of years, across all civilizations. But for some reason, the one civilization that actually took the action to end this institution of slavery is the one that's it's hung on, is the one that's it's blamed, blamed for it. Because the truth is that it is the white Christian European that, of all groups in the history of the world, finally took a stand and said, no more, this institution is wrong and it has to come to an end. So it's very interesting how narratives are spun, and the very group that ended it is the only group that's really blamed for it. So I'd love to get into that.
Oh, dude, wonderfully said. 100%. You know, just looking at the Civil War, we're taking the Yulees, for example, and their cousins, you go ask anyone, you know, black, white, you know, what was the Civil War all about? Slavery. Well, between who? The Christian South and the kind of less Christian North. You know, that's what most people think of, you know, the more cosmopolitan North, sophisticated, industrialized, you know, sanitized. Oh, they were just angels up there in the North, right? They were just angels. And the cotton that they put into their machines, it came from heaven. It was like manna from heaven. It definitely didn't come from the South or any other continent that had slaves. But, you know, just looking at David Yulee and his cousin, Judah P. Benjamin, just them two alone rewrite the whole Civil War psyop. Jefferson Davis was in charge. He's the number one man. Who's number two? Judah Benjamin, America's second Jewish senator ever, the cousin of David Yulee. David Yulee also held a office in the cabinet of Jefferson Davis. When the Civil War was falling apart, who were two of Jefferson Davis' closest confidants? Judah Benjamin and David Yulee, who was the last man accompanying Jefferson Davis with the Confederate treasury, escaping the Union forces out of Richmond, Virginia, It was Judah Benjamin clinging to Jefferson Davis like Wormtongue. You guys know Grima Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
The king of Rohan. What was his name? Eowyn? Is that right? Something like that. The king of Rohan is strong, mighty, blonde, youthful. And then Saruman, we're talking Lord of the Rings here for a sec, sends a little, I don't know what to call him. Grima Wormtongue has a look about him, a certain look. I can't put my finger on it, but I don't know, Brazilian, Portuguese, something. But he starts whispering in the ear of this great king and starts telling him, "Oh no, let the orcs into your territory. They won't hurt anyone. Let the That's what Judah Benjamin was to Jefferson Davis. He was the Grima Wormtongue. How can we prove that? Well, when it was all said and done, and when the writing was on the wall that the South couldn't win, and Jefferson Davis was about to get captured, Judah Benjamin abandoned him, took all the gold, and escaped to England. Never held responsible for his involvement in the Confederacy. David Yulee, who owned over 1,000 slaves, that's right, second largest slaveholder in America, depending on what metrics you use, second largest slaveholder in America, was a Sephardic senator from Florida. He only spent, I think, like a year or two in jail, maybe a couple more than that. And then he was out too, So this is just a glimpse into the story. We've got to take it from the beginning all the way to the end, cover the Epstein Island and the education and all that. But let's also talk about Florida's birthday real quick. March 3rd, we normally do astrology shows. This is a little bit of numerology too. Well, David Yulee, guys, not only was he the first Jewish senator in America, he was also one of the top Freemasons in Florida. You don't typically see that. Very established, Jewish men in the public eye being openly Freemasons, but it did happen in Florida 200 years ago or so, and David Yulee was one of them. So when we look at the date of statehood for Florida, which David Yulee himself helped choose, we see an obvious tip of the hat to Freemasonry. 3/3, March 3rd, right? Well, Florida isn't necessarily the capital of Freemasonry or anything like that, but it is the capital of Shriners International. Florida was also one of the key areas of interest for the Knights of the Golden Circle, the KGC, who David Yulee helped fund and create the KGC, but they're very secret. So, not a lot of evidence on that. Not a lot of strong, provable evidence, but I've seen enough. But the KGC, for those who don't know, when the Civil War broke out, the Freemasons in the North and the South had to kind of pick a side, right? Most of the Freemasons in the South rebranded as the Knights of the Golden Circle, KGC, Kentucky Grilled Chicken. Okay. Now, from there on, okay, the KGC would, leading up to the Civil War, their goal was to take over as much of Mesoamerica, the Caribbean, South America, as much as they could, and just avoid war with the North. That clearly didn't work out. But to this day, tens of thousands of Confederate descendants live in Mexico and Brazil to this day. Tens of thousands. They have. Can you look up a picture of that, Merlin, please?
Sure.
They're called like Confederanos or something like that.
It's pretty fascinating. I've seen it before, and they still have They're in South America, but they still have the Confederate flag and
Yeah. Yep. They're mainly in Mexico and Brazil.
or North America.
Yeah. Search Confederate Mexico parade. Yeah. And what's up, y'all? We got 570 in the chat. Good to see you guys. I knew this would be an interesting one. Oh, that's all. Oh, yeah. That's very recent.
I'm not sure if this is in Mexico, though. Let's see.
That looks like America. I think you're getting nerfed for search results.
Yeah, it's, top Google result or top even DuckDuckGo is not going to be too based, honestly.
Yeah. Confederates in Brazil. Here, I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah.
Here we go. Oh, you got it. You searched that? Confederates in Brazil?
I could do Confederates in Brazil.
Sure, I got it. These are... The BBC did a whole thing on it. This is one of those towns in Brazil. You can see very lively to this day. They enjoy and celebrate their heritage.
How dare they?
How did they end? Yeah, I mean, and that's another thing that we're going to be kind of talking about on and off is I don't know if I necessarily disagree with all of the goals of the KGC and, stuff like that. But I'm not saying the Civil War was necessarily cut and dry, good versus evil. But, yeah. So we have these Confederates in Brazil and Mexico, tens of thousands of them. And those connections were made originally by the Knights of the Golden Circle, who used to fill up, ships with a couple hundred guys, horses, and take over countries in Central and South America. You think the CIA started that, guys? No. Guys, we've been toppling, unstable countries in Latin America for hundreds of years, since before the Civil War. And before they were the Knights of the Golden Circle, they were actually called the Order of the Lone Star. And that's where you get Lone Star flag, Texas, originally from Florida, Lone Star flag. And what's the picture we're painting here? Well, the KGC wanted to take over all of the Gulf of Mexico, all of the Caribbean, and as much else as they could get in order to do a slave empire, massive slave empire. They wanted to build cities like Rome, purely off slave labor. This is like what they think, what they say about the Confederates in classrooms to try and push propaganda. That's kind of what the KGC was actually about. They were like, yes, full-blown slave empire. Everyone's got hundreds of slaves. They were the ugliest side of the Confederacy. They were the ugliest element, the most, from what I've seen. So a lot of that pro-slavery sentiment was fueled within the KGC and then pushed on to the greater Confederacy, leading up to what would become the Civil War. And who was behind this? Not, a lot of people think Albert Pike was behind the KGC too.
No relation.
Right. It's funny. That some people think Albert Pike was behind the KGC. Some people think I haven't seen good evidence for that, though. It's just a suspicion. And actually, considering some of Pike's activities, like some people think he's a hero against racism. He may not have meshed well with the Knights of the Golden Circle and their aims, right? So I'm not saying they can both be bad guys, but I don't think Albert Pike was fully behind the KGC. David Yulee had a lot more to do with it. Yulee was also a Mason. People think he was just like a statesman and a farmer and all this, but No, he was an occultist. You know, he knew his stuff. Well, here, the whole Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America thing, the KGC would fail in their goals. Then Civil War would break out. The South lost the Civil War. Judah Benjamin, sold out Jefferson Davis. But then after the Civil War, the KGC rebrands themselves again as the KKK. They have to go even farther underground, and they Germanize their initials, KGC, K, G, K. They kind of Germanize it and then make it Greek and German, because that's what they were very into. And they made it Ku Klux Klan. How many people have made movies, watched, shows, read books about the Ku Klux Klan? Nobody knows what Ku Klux Klan means. Nobody. I hate to put you guys on the spot. Maybe you guys will. Merlin, do you know what Ku Klux means?
I don't.
Brett, do you know what Ku Klux means?
I already said I surround myself with people who are smarter than me.
No, well, I'm not trying to, win any points here, but
No, you're good, bro.
It's insane how people don't know that, despite how controversial, how I don't know, pervasive stuff about the KKK is. Nobody says what it means. Ku Klux means circle in Greek. Cyclical. Remember all those C's in Greek when we go back? The Y's turn into U's and the C's turn into K's. That's why cyber and government go back to the same Greek word. Cyber, gopher, goober. That's all the same word back in Greek. So you see how cyclo or circle in Greek is Ku Klux. Go ahead.
That makes perfect sense because the KKK was big into magic. That's why they literally dressed like wizards. They had their pointy hats. And what is the leader of the KKK called? The Grand Wizard. So understanding the circle is incredibly important to understanding magic. So that's so cool. I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Brett.
If I could ask you, because I know I've heard you talk about this before, and correct me if I get this wrong, because I might butcher this. This isn't my lane, but it is believed that the Knights of the Golden Circle might have had something to do with the assassination of Lincoln. Is that correct?
Oh, that's 1,000% correct.
Okay, I thought so. So it's believed that they were involved in that, and they eventually become the KKK. So what I always find interesting with historical stuff is not so much just what gets lost, but why certain things get covered up. So is it the association with David Yulee that you believe is the reason the Knights of the Golden Circle has been lost to history, or is that off the mark?
That's definitely a huge part of it. Remember, let's not beat around the bush. The fact that these two guys, David Yulee and his cousin Judah Benjamin, the fact that they were Jewish puts a huge wrench in the propaganda machine that's been churning out anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-South, anti-Republican, anti-this. What do you mean? The largest slaveholder in the South, or second largest, was Jewish, but then also here, let's pull up David Yulee's Wikipedia first, so people can touch base and see the facts, right? The Wikipedia facts about this guy. And just so you guys know, what I pulled up on screen right there is an initiation ritual or a ceremony of the Knights of the Golden Circle. Another thing about the KKK nobody ever asks about: why the pointy white hats? Why the sheets? Why all this stuff? Well, guys, the Knights of the Golden Circle had a uniform. Hey, Brett, I think we're getting a echo off.
Is it coming from me? I don't hear it. So
I think
is it my
so.
phone?
I think so, because when me and Merlin both talk, I hear it.
It
You hear
might
it
just
now?
be because if your volume is loud, it might just be a little bit too loud to echo.
What
Yeah.
about now?
Hey, yellow. All right.
Hello.
I think we're. What we're looking at is an initiation ritual of the Knights of the Golden Circle, and when they rebranded, guys. Well, okay, one thing at a time. The Knights of the Golden Circle had a uniform that included a pointy helmet, like with a tip or almost like a crescent moon on there. And also, the Knights of the Golden Circle were big crescent worshippers. They venerated. They held up a crescent and they'd like bow down to it. So when we see the Shriners being all about the crescent shape and the Gulf of America being headquartered in Tampa Bay, right? We see the same mission kind of being kept alive through Shriners International. And I guess we're going to get into the fast food thing tonight too. Hey, Brett, we're still getting this echo.
I have
Dude.
no idea. Okay.
There's like a little settings thing. If you go to general, there's like a echo or audio. There's like an echo cancellation. But
You know who else was into crescents?
who?
The ancient Druids.
Oh.
And they would literally, this is in the Secret Teachings of All Ages, actually. He talks about how the ancient Druids what they would do is on the 6th day after the new moon, which is when the moon is a crescent shape, right? They would take a sickle, which is also the shape of a crescent, and they would collect the dew off of leaves and shrubbery and collect essentially that moon, the lunar dew on the crescent moon with their sickle and save that for their whatever they needed it for, all sorts of different purposes.
Yes.
But yeah, crescents go way back.
Well, here, Brett brought up something good earlier that we kind of glossed over. Abraham Lincoln was, in fact, assassinated by, John Wilkes Booth was a confirmed member of the Knights of the Golden Circle. Not just that, all of his co-conspirators, all of them, were also members of the Knights of the Golden Circle. There were previous attempts on Abraham Lincoln's life. They didn't get very far, but they did arrange various plots that kind of fell through. In fact, John Wilkes Booth, if we're going to believe, the story, the mainstream narrative, John Wilkes Booth was actually fed up with all the failed plots that the KGC had been trying to do. So he just jumped up and did it himself, like real quick, like enough of this, get it over with. I'm just gonna boom, dead, But he was a member of the Knights of the Golden Circle, and yeah, also interestingly, about all of the co-conspirators except John Wilkes Booth were imprisoned in a star fort off the coast of Key West during the Civil War in a Union jail in Florida, which was a Confederate state, but there's a Union fort in the Keys that was Union the whole time. And they imprisoned the co-conspirators in this star fort. Let's go look at it. Fort Jefferson. Now, talk about Tartaria. This is one of the big ones that people say, oh, there's no way they could have built this, 20 million bricks or 10 million bricks, something like that, some crazy number. But
it's a beautiful location, man. Beautiful looking like architecture too. It's so just aesthetic.
All right.
It's crazy.
sent to prison in a tropical getaway.
Better than Rikers, right? Hopefully.
Pretty nice.
Yeah.
Pretty nice. Well, you've got David Yulee's Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's up.
Cool. This is David Levy Yulee, people. This is the guy most of us have never heard of. I never heard about him until I started making videos like this. Yeah. Yulee was the first person of Jewish ancestry elected to the United States House of Representatives, as well as the first elected to the United States Senate. Yep. Oh, he converted to Christianity. Sorry. Hang on, guys, man, I wish we got our facts straight. I had no idea he was a Christian. Well, forget everything we said about him up until now. He converted. It was a earnest conversion. And
those evil Christians.
He's saved. Yulee saved. I don't know. Just kidding. But I'm not buying his conversion for a sec. In fact, most historians say he only converted so they'd let him in, so they'd let him into the Senate, so they'd be okay with him being in the Senate, even if he'd already been converted. So don't buy that. That doesn't change anything. And it doesn't change his ancestry. And believe me, Christian or not, he owned slaves, and a lot of them. So, but all right, David Levy Yulee. He also his okay. Here's another connection to the KGC. The father of his wife was also in the KGC, I believe. Go watch my KGC video. It's in there for sure. But so there are strong connections between Yulee and the KGC, and another one I believe goes through.
This is his father-in-law right here, Charles A. Wycliffe, who you just mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm 90% sure he was in the KGC as well. But all right, let's go back. Let's zoom out a little bit. Have you ever seen those memes where it's like school bus, prison bus, school lunch tray, prison lunch tray, cafeteria. There's more parallels between the two. Yeah, can we zoom in on that? Yes, perfect. Now, what are we seeing here? Okay, you could actually probably replace prison with slavery, and it might be a little more accurate. When slavery was no longer an option, much of the KGC got into fast food, believe it or not, fast food. So we see a lot of these elements being present, right up until today. But before we talk about David Yulee, let's do a little story time. Okay. David Yulee was born in the Virgin Islands. His father was not born in the Virgin Islands, though. David Levy Yulee had a father named Moses Levy. Can we go to Moses Levy's Wikipedia, please?
Sure can.
So Moses Levy was born in the 1780s. What does it say? 1782.
82, accurate.
Died 1854. And so he died a little before the Civil War, right? I'm sure he would have loved to see that kick off, okay? But he just, he didn't have it in him to pull through to see it all play out. But this is where it's going to get even crazier, guys. You think some of these connections are, unnerving? Well, now let's throw religion, some real religion into the mix, okay? Moses, Elias, some people call him Eliyahu, Elias Levy, Elijah Levy. I've seen it written different ways. Moses Levy was born in Morocco. And yeah, it says Morocco, right? Yeah.
Yeah, to an
Mogador.
elite
Yeah.
Sephardic Jewish family.
Well, let's talk about the Levy family. This family was originally from Spain. They were kicked out of Spain, just like, many of the other. There was an expulsion. There was the Spanish Inquisition. There was the Edict of Expulsion, the Alhambra decree.
So
And
they were kicked out after the 1492 expulsion, or was that when they were kicked out initially?
I believe he was kicked out with all the others around 1492, but he
Gotcha.
didn't go to the Americas. Moses Levy went to Morocco, and there he found, or at least I'm saying Moses, his family, okay? His family was from Spain. They were kicked out and went to Morocco. They went to Morocco, and there they worked for the Sultan, right? The head guy over there in Morocco. And, we hear about, there's a term called court Jew, which is not a denigrating thing at all. Okay, this, it's a matter of fact throughout history. Kings would often choose to have Jews in their royal courts, or the other way around. Sometimes Jews would really try and get into the royal courts because Jews were able to conduct business in different ways than Christians. Some things Christians were barred from doing, Jews were actually kind of encouraged to do, financially speaking, like lending money to non-Jews. Christians are traditionally discouraged, if not barred, banned from lending to other Christians for interest. Whereas within Judaism, they do have the custom not to lend with interest to another Jew, or at least they have that option. Whereas Jews to non-Jews, there's no religious, there's no nothing keeping them, no what's the word I'm looking for? There's no opposition to lending for profit, lending for interest to non-Jews. And this is why you see, the big theme of banking being associated with Jewish people. But as far as a king or a queen was concerned, they would often see Jews as better business opportunities at first, at least, and then usually throughout European history, they'd often fall into debt to some of these court Jews. But blah blah blah. Court Jews were a thing. They wouldn't just be financiers. Throughout history, Jews have traditionally been multilingual. They've often been very active in the ports and along the borders and along significant trade routes. Jews typically cling to urban areas, especially the more religious they are, because they need to be able to walk, on Shabbat, on the Sabbath, So there are certain things within Jewish religion that not only keep them from being like too rural and agrarian, but also encourage them to stay urban. Blah blah blah. The court Jew would provide many services for the king and the queen or other members of the court, and that was true for Christian kings, the English, the French, the Spanish, you name it, Italy. Every country in Europe had this happen at one point. Then you go to Morocco, because remember, the Jews are kicked out of Spain. Many of them go to the Americas, starting with Columbus. But the ones who had, many of them went to North Africa and offered their services to the sultans and the Muslim rulers, where they were often welcomed. And this is a big misconception, guys, is even before 1492, remember, there's stories about when the Muslims came into Spain, 711 AD. There's another KGC, fast food, schizophrenic like connection there. 7-Eleven. Every time you shop at 7-Eleven, that may be the Freemasons making fun of the Moors or sticking it to the Moors, saying, "Yeah, you got us in 7-Eleven, but now we feed you all this slop in return." Like all the. But so, just a little bit of a joke there, 7-Eleven. But then some of these families, they went to North Africa. They were welcomed just like they welcomed the Muslims when the Muslims went into Spain. They saw them as liberators against the Christians or against the Visigoths or whoever else was there. That is why you get this affinity, or they like each other. They're closer allies back then than they are today. People think about Judaism and Islam today. They think of nothing but battle, right? Nothing but disagreement. Guys, 1,000 years ago, that was not the case. They were in much agreement, especially in Spain. Especially in Spain, you saw this harmony between Judaism and the Muslim invaders, hence the Spanish Golden Age. Or sorry, the Spanish Golden Age doesn't start till later, till the Jews are kicked out. What I meant to say was the Golden Age of Spanish Jewry. Can you look that up, please?
Sure.
Golden Age of Spanish Jews. It's a real thing.
Yeah, well, many people are unaware that Islam had conquered Spain for 800 years, and I know you could elaborate on the role that, or the relationship between Islam and Judaism as that went on, and how that led up to 1492 and ultimately the expulsions that brought on the New World. So it's really the bridge to the New World. And that's why I was so happy when you started teaching this stuff to our students, because you really can't understand American history unless you understand what the bridge was and what happened, what preceded the bridge. So it's so important.
Oh, totally. And just like you're saying, the Golden Age after they were expelled, well, they had their Golden Age before they were expelled. It's funny, they had their Golden Age, it ends, and then the Spanish Golden Age starts, right? It's almost like there can only be one sheriff in town, only one Golden Age in town, right? It's like, but this Moses Levy guy, his father ends up being a high-ranking official, counselor, court Jew to one of the sultans of Morocco. So find which one it was.
Sultan Muhammad bin Abdullah.
Muhammad bin Abdullah. Okay. Really rolls off the tongue.
Oh yeah.
His wife Rachel, also interestingly, apparently he had 3 moms. So Moses Levy, his dad had 3 moms, Muslim style. So, they were kind of adopting the Muslim lifestyle, you can see, right? Muslim practices. So Moses Levy had 3 moms. Man, I know some kids with 2 moms, and that's rough enough. I'm just kidding. But this guy's got 3 moms, or his dad's got 3 wives at least. And he was in the Sultan's court, and he's doing good business, doing well for himself. They're succeeding, and then something happens, and he's kicked out of court. And when we say court, that's just like the courtyard, or the, it's almost like, how would you say it? It's like the board meeting every morning, or it's like court today, like regular court, but it's kind of mixed in with news. It would also be like the news segment, like turning on CNN, like you go to court, hear what's going on. But Moses Levy is kicked out of Morocco, and now he's expelled again, and he has to go to the Caribbean. His last name in Morocco was Yulee with an I. Yulee with an I. Well, guys, that's going to be extremely significant. It's going to start a pattern, a trend that links all of this together through the 3-3 March 3rd. Why is that Florida's birthday? It all ties in, and it goes back to the Yulee family. There you go. Someone got it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool in chat.
Someone beat me to it. So in Morocco, their name was Yulee with an I. When they get to America, number one, Moses Levy dropped the Yulee from his name when he went to the Caribbean. It was too Arabic, you know. He's just good old fashioned Jewish now. Moses Levy goes to the Caribbean and becomes one of the top shippers. Lumber is what he's most well known for, right? It wasn't just lumber, guys. Okay, this was like Wayfair lumber. This was like, oh yeah, I'm a furniture salesman. I'm a lumber salesman. Yeah, that is how he gets to the Caribbean. He's making money, and of course, he gets big into slavery. Slavery, and why do I always say human trafficking? Because it wasn't just slavery for agriculture. It was also finding black, brown, young, old, little boys, you name it. This is Epstein Island 101, way back to the Yulee family. They weren't just dealing with large amounts of black slaves. They were also dealing with underaged people, okay? And the Virgin Islands has historically been like a vacation spot for PDF files. It's just the way it's been for hundreds of years.
Is that why they call it the Virgin Islands? Like, is there a connection there, just like the name Virgin?
Now, I
Or is that too
imagine
much?
I imagine it goes back to either Queen Elizabeth I or the Virgin Mary, but I could be wrong. Let's look it up. You know, we also have what's his name, Richard Branson, being friends with Epstein. He named his company Virgin. Yeah.
Yeah, Virgin Records. Wasn't the guy who owned Virgin like gonna make like a spaceship or something like that too? Like, wasn't that one of his things back in the a rocket?
Hell yeah. Rape the sky like everyone else.
Yeah.
Go rape the moon with a rocket, NASA style. Yeah. What is it?
No, they figured out why we named the island.
Oy vey. Where does the name come from? Etymology.
There we go. Yeah, Cristobal Colombo.
Oh shit!
Saint
11,000 virgins.
That's a lot of virgins.
Okay, so this is like a sinister meaning, a little bit. I mean, Christopher Columbus goes back to him, but all right, there you go. It does mean virgins. It means actual virgins. Thousands of virgins.
Well, I'm making a social media video on that. That is just gravy.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. Oh, you want to hear something crazy? I'm going to tell this story. I had a kid on my lacrosse team who was in the grade above me, or two grades above me. He was one of the biggest kids on the team. He happened to be Jewish. Whatever, not a big deal. Happened to be. A lot of my high school was South Florida. His name was, I can't say his name. He would always tell the story. He was reluctant to tell it. People would make him tell the story. That when he turned 14, 13, his dad took him to Costa Rica and paid for him to lose his virginity. 13 years old.
That's young, man. That's
It's
wild.
pretty crazy.
And he went to Latin America to do it. Things like that happen. And that's not even like, whatever. So little insider scoop on that actually happened, or at least the story was actually told to me. Yeah, 13's your bar mitzvah. Exactly. All right. Good job on the bar mitzvah. Let's go get your plane ticket. Celebrate. But that's a real story. I don't know if it really happened, but that used to be told around on my lacrosse team. Well, here we're talking about Moses Levy. Moses Levy. Can you look up slave ship owners? Just search that. Slave ship owners log. See, and go to images.
Yeah, like we're looking for the meme like this. Yeah.
Yeah, look for the meme.
One.
Look for the meme one. Or if you got to keyword it with, there you go, in the middle right there.
This we go. Yes, right here. You got it. Good eye.
Zoom
Good
in on
eye.
that.
Zoom.
Now I don't. I'm not.
Ooh.
Hang on. Yep.
Oh, all right.
I'm not gonna vouch for this and say this is like this. Oh, this meme is rock solid evidence. Okay, I've looked at better ones than this, but there is just one question: is this our Moses Levy? If this is our Moses Levy, guys, this family is the slave trade. Like, we know Moses Levy owned some slave ships. The only problem is there's a lot of Moses Levies. Like, it's a very common name for them. But if this Moses Levy is the same Moses Levy, that makes him the most instrumental man in the slave trade before the Civil War. And, it's crazy. But regardless, he has the same name, as the man who owned more slave ships than anyone else. And his son, David Levy, for a fact, owned over 1,000 slaves. Over 1,000 slaves. How many slaves did the average Christian Southerner own? 1, 2, 3, if they were well off. 1,000? Jesus Christ. You don't even see 1,000 in Django. You don't even see 1,000 in anything like that. Have you ever seen 1,000 slaves in a Hollywood movie in one spot?
No.
It's a serious plantation.
Yeah. And guys, the plantations are still there. You can go visit the Yulee plantation. You can go tour the Yulee plantation. See the brick pillars and the smokestacks. The Seminoles, believe it or not, it was the Seminole Indians who destroyed the Yulee plantations before the Civil War. But yeah, also, we've got 1,000 people tuning in. I don't know if you guys saw that. We got 1,000 people tuning in. Very blessed. Thanks to everyone for being here. I knew it would be a pretty good topic, but here, since we got all these people in, let's introduce Brett a little bit more. If you guys haven't seen what he's been doing, what was that, a week ago? You were on Alex Jones, Brett?
Yeah, last Wednesday I was on Alex Jones.
Hell yeah, dude. It was great. I watched the whole thing.
It was a lot of fun, for sure. And coming up in the conspiracy world and then eventually ending up on InfoWars is pretty peak. So,
dude, yeah, that's sick. That's like, that is like, I mean, you made it before that. You've made it before this, but when you get on Alex Jones, like that's like the ultimate.
Well, there are moments where we have the ability to shape culture and kind of guide the thought process of people in society. And sometimes it's just with short form videos, sometimes it's with long form like this. And then for me, I mean, to get on InfoWars and to be in front of an audience like that and really talk about um, things from a different perspective than they're probably used to hearing, which is kind of the motto I live by, which is you have to prevent the youth from falling asleep, right? So if you don't have to wake them up if they never fall asleep, and to go on in front of that audience and talk about the defense of our culture through real history. So what the slave trade really was and what the relationship was between these different Abrahamic religions at that time. Just a great opportunity. So I was really happy about it. And I think Alex liked it. So hopefully he wants to have me back.
Yeah, he was giving you some good praise. He doesn't do that for all his guests. That's for sure. Let's watch a little bit of it. Let's watch his introduction for you. Let's hang on. Boom, look at that. All right, we're going in. Alex Jones. Who does it? Do you guys do a good Alex Jones impression?
Alex Jones, turn the frogs gay.
It's too guttural. You gotta get real dead. You gotta get like so. I want to make a joke or like a meme where it's like the Mongolian throat singing. It's like and then like it phases into like Alex Jones, just like the Democrats are gonna like I don't know, something like that.
Have you guys seen the video of the Alex Jones as a punk folk song or whatever?
Oh yeah,
it's a good one.
the what's it called? The metal one's better. The metal sound. Alex Jones metal song. All right, I think we're at the right time. Here. 1 sec. All right, just chat for a sec. I'm gonna find the right time.
Spread everywhere else. I can't even track it. Brett Pike is the founder of the Classical Learning Homeschool Company, Homeschools Connected, and the author of Cubs to Bears children's book series, which I've gotten for my daughter, the 8-year-old.
Well, I guess I better lead the chat then as we find the right time.
ClassicalLearner.com at Classical Learner. And he also again,
but yeah, it was good to go on there, and I got to talk about a lot
of
history
follow him at Classical Learner.
People are unaware of. And we talked about the Frankfurt School. Oh.
Can you not hear it?
No, we don't hear it.
Oh, you can't hear it either, Steve?
Merlin? No, I hear the Alex Jones video 100%. I also heard Brett talking at the same time.
Okay. So I didn't hear it, so I'll quiet down then.
Oh, Brett. Shit, why is that happening?
Are you listening on X? Is that why you don't hear it? Or are you listening on StreamYard?
I'm on StreamYard, and I thought we were just sitting in silence.
That's weird.
Because you can hear us, but not the video. That's really odd.
Well, he's talking about you, and you were there, so just bear with us for like a couple minutes. We're gonna hear what you guys talked about at the beginning. The people can hear it.
Yeah.
So we play a few of these reports for you. Let's play clip 6. Children are taught slavery is an American an American creation versus reality. Here's that report.
Why is it that public schools only teach about the transatlantic slave trade? They don't teach
give it some volume.
Slavery in the Ottoman Empire, that it lasted for 600 years and 5 to 10 million people were enslaved. That they not only enslaved men, but the most valuable slaves were women, because sexual slavery was not only permitted, but it was institutionalized in the Ottoman Empire. So they would get many of their slaves from Central Europe, many of their slaves from the Balkans, and they would enslave Hungarians, Russians, Ukrainians, which is why the word slave comes from Slav. And why don't schools teach about the trans-Indian slave trade, which lasted for over 1,200 years and enslaved 4 to 10 million people? Or the trans-Saharan slave trade, which lasted for over 1,200 years and enslaved 9 to 17 million people, all of which ended, ready for it, not before, but long after the North Atlantic slave trade. And yes, chattel slavery was practiced in all of these places. In fact, in 1776, the majority of countries in the world practiced chattel slavery. And where Europe and the United States were early.
Dude, that's crazy. Brett, I know you can't hear it, but you just pointed out the chattel slavery myth. You know, I had this guy in the bookstore like a month ago saying America is the only place that chattel slavery's ever been institutionalized, and that's wrong, and that is lasting, and that is permanent, and that's why we're looking for decades of reparations and hundreds of years of reparations, and it's the chattel slavery that makes it different. You Irish people had it easy, you know, you etc. You're kind of busting those myths right here, aren't you, Brett?
Well, you know what the most interesting part about that whole narrative is, because I made a few more videos on that topic because I heard it all the time in my comments that the United States of America was uniquely evil because it was the only place that practiced chattel slavery. For one, they did in other places as well. They did in the Ottoman Empire, and I think a pretty high percentage of slaveholding places in the world did practice chattel slavery. But in some instances, they didn't for a few reasons. So, for one, a lot of times in the Ottoman Empire, and specifically with African slaves, they would have them castrated. So you can't enslave their children if they're being castrated. Now, you tell me, if you were a slave, which model would you prefer? The model where chattel slavery or the model where you're castrated? I think everyone knows the answer to that, if they're being honest. And then you get the other part of the myth. And people always hear about the North Atlantic or the transatlantic slave trade. And there's this idea, or there's this myth, that it was this almost like this unique American evil, when the truth is there were 12 million slaves brought from Africa to North and South America. And of those 12 million slaves that were brought over, only about 300 to 400,000 of them were brought to the American colonies or the United States of America. 12 million people were brought across the ocean, and only 300 to 400,000 were brought here. Now, here's the kicker, because they say chattel slavery, it's what makes America evil. Really? Well, the reason South America, Brazil, and Portugal needed to bring over so many more slaves than the American colonies is they treated them so poorly that they would all just die. They didn't let them procreate. They pretty much brought over only men. And the theory they had was, if they feed them as little bit as possible, they spend as little amount of money as possible on providing shelter for those slaves, if they die, no big deal. They could just replace them, right? Why invest the money into it? So the reason they had to bring 10 million slaves to South America was because they treated them so poorly that the slaves kept on dying. And that was the model. Whereas in the colonies and the United States of America, they only brought over about 300 to 400,000. And the incentives were actually to treat those slaves well so that they would have children. And by the time the Civil War came, there was 4 million slaves in the United States of America. And when you think about the different models, I mean, if you're a slave, and obviously I don't advocate for slavery, I'm just talking about the different models. If a slave has a child and you're allowing that child to grow, right? Well, that means the mother has to be with that child for at least 7 to 8 years and feed that child and care for that child. This is not an easy thing. So people point at and say, oh, look how evil America was, when the truth is, in terms of slavery, which is an inhumane institution, when you start to compare what they actually were, America was more on the humane side. And to further elaborate on that, when you go to the Ottoman Empire, for example, which enslaved millions of Europeans and millions of Africans, they had institutionalized sexual slavery. So, whereas in many places, males would be the most desired slaves, in the Ottoman Empire, they were specifically going out trying to conquer places, trying to find slaves, because they wanted to systematically and legally, institutionally rape European women. So there are these narratives about the United States of America that, although, yes, slavery is not humane, and I think everyone agrees about that in the modern context, the truth is that it was as humane, if not more humane, than slavery in other places. And people don't
Right.
like to hear that. And as this was going on, you had this institution that lasted for thousands of years. It goes back to Egypt and Rome and Mesopotamia, right? And all these different places. I know my Mesopotamian history might be wrong because I've heard you talk about that, but it goes back to these regions of the world for thousands of years across all people, and no one stopped it. And the Europeans get involved, and they do it very well because Europeans are, they have European efficiency. And, 12 million slaves in a few hundred years. But in that very short period of time, you have this mass cultural awakening going on from the Christian Europeans saying that, hey, guys, don't you think this is wrong? And then people will point and say, oh, well, you didn't stop it right away. Well, look how long it takes to do any type of societal change today. I mean, this is a monumental change, a monumental break from human norms. And it is an extension of the Enlightenment. It's the extension of the rise of individual liberty and the Magna Carta. These are incredible achievements of European culture. And ultimately, what perhaps might be the greatest achievement of European culture is it actually is the culture that ended this inhumane institution of slavery. And that's the truth about what happened. In fact, you go 1807, and Thomas Jefferson signs the bill. He was the president of the United States at the time. He signs the bill to end the transatlantic slave trade. Well, that same year, England ends the transatlantic slave trade. 1833, England outlaws slavery in all of their colonies. The United States fights a war to end slavery in the 1860s, right? End slavery in 1865, I believe it was. And then the United States, along with England, and England really spearheaded this, started a massive campaign to demand that slavery be ended all across the rest of the world. And the rest of the world would slowly follow. And it would take another 100 years. But with the United States and with England, eventually slavery, allegedly, everyone gets that, would be legally eradicated throughout the world.
That's great news. I'm gonna pick up the phone and let Somalia and all them know. I'm gonna go let Ghana know and all the Congo and
Libya, bro. Open air slave markets in Libya.
Do they not know yet that slavery was eradicated?
And just to that point, England had the West African Squadron, and in fact, England spent so much money, they went into so much debt attempting to eradicate slavery around the world, and ultimately they just had to pay for it. That's how they got rid of it. They only finished off paying the debt that the English people paid to end slavery all around the world. They only finished off paying off that debt, I think, in 2015. They were paying interest on this for hundreds of years that they did out of the goodness of their hearts to end slavery. You had the West African Squadron, English Navy going around all of West Africa, intercepting slave ships, freeing the slaves, ending the trade. And the truth is that without the white Christian European, slavery would still be the norm throughout all of the world legally and just celebrated openly, just as it was for thousands of years. And we should be very proud of that. But instead, a fake narrative has been put together and weaponized against us and against our ancestors and against our children. And it's really important that we teach people the truth.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah. I'm glad a lot of people got to hear some of that message when you were on Alex Jones. Guys, if you didn't catch Brett on Alex Jones, make sure you go check him out. And also, you know, I'm sure you got tons of messages. Oh, Alex Jones is the biggest shill in the world. Whatever, guys. Get over it. You know, like the truth is the truth. I don't think he's that big of a shill. I mean, he has blind spots. We all have blind spots. You know, we all have our could he be compromised? You know, I'm not the guy to say, but I like watching Alex Jones. I think he's a net positive. I think his blind spots are consistent with some of the other blind spots that I see a lot of my friends. You know, I'm a vegetarian. He's big on the flesh. He seems to be big on drinking. You know, am I gonna cancel him for that or something else? Whatever. If he were organic, fruity, you know, Florida hippie, maybe we'd be more on the same page. But I like what Alex Jones does. I'm an Alex Jones fan, and people need to lower their bar or their entitlement to like perfect people giving them information. You know, I like Alex Jones. What do you think, Brett? Did you catch some flack or stuff like that?
Well, yeah, of course I got that. And be careful who you associate with. He's compromised. He's a shill. And what I would like to communicate to people, because everyone loves purity test, but as someone who I do real things in the real world, right? Like I built an education company, and I face a lot of pressures, right? And there's a target on you, and people are gunning for you, and there's liability issues, and all of these things go on. And I always try to put myself in the shoes of the people that have tried to walk these paths, because it's easy for people to Monday morning quarterback and say, you did this or that, right? Like an example would be Elon. Sorry, my dogs are. Stop. I'm in the middle of a podcast. Cut it out. Puppy golden retriever. He's crazy. I don't wish him on my worst. He's the best. So Elon Musk, as an example, right? You know, people say, oh, stop, Wesley. Let's hold him between my thighs. Stop. Sit down. So Elon Musk as an example, and people say, oh, well, X isn't a completely free speech place, and, you know, he's supposed to be free speech. And I'd say to them, think for 1 second the enormous pressure and leverage that this guy is probably under, from legal attacks to business attacks. And he's doing a pretty damn good job of letting people speak, to the point where the issues that people are upset about today, the only reason they know about these issues, because Narco, you and I mean, we're bears, right? So 8 years ago, a lot of these issues that people have recently woke up to, we were talking about in our communities. And people don't understand that the only reason they even know about the thing they're mad about is because Elon has shown a lot of courage with allowing that speech to take place. And when I look at someone like Alex Jones, who, like, in terms of the conspiracy world, is like the godfather, right, is of the conspiracy world.
Yeah.
And what happened with him with the school incident and the lawsuits he was facing, and I look at that guy and I say, you guys don't see why he would have got so attached to Trump and maybe not want to criticize Trump when he was facing these lawsuits and he was facing factions within the United States government, in intelligence, the FBI, the CIA, that are trying to not only shut down his business and take all his money, but literally trying to put him in jail, that he would say, okay, I'm going to attach myself to this regime. I'm going to give them a little leadway because I actually do think it's good based on what I've gone against. And it's easy for people to look at that and Leslie, stop, and come from a purity perspective, but it's actually really hard when you're doing real things in the real world to navigate these challenges. So like you were saying, I try to give people a lot of rope, and I always try to remind myself, what has it been like to walk in this guy's shoes?
Totally.
Yo, Longo, you're muted.
Yeah, no, my bad. Merlin, you want to touch on that? Just kind of like the I like to call it the entitlement to spotless lambs. It's like, oh, my president is people criticize presidents, they criticize Alex Jones tier hosts with things like, or sorry, they criticize from a place as though they have an endless supply of spotless, pure Jesus Christ, in the Jesus Christ level perfection. That's where they're getting all their other information. That's who's leading their country when they go home. They have a whole plethora of perfect options to choose from. Guys, where are these perfect options? Where are these perfect speakers? And again, a lot of it comes down to wanting Alex Jones to agree with like all of my everything I believe. It's not practical. You can't even get that with your own family. One person to believe everything you also believe. And God clearly doesn't want it that way. The world shouldn't be that way. And I don't ever feel entitled to a spotless lamb of a leader or just someone that I can choose to listen to. So don't stick your nose up or anything like that just because, oh, don't you know that person said something I disagree with 10 years ago? Don't you know that person shills for this, shills for that, shills for that? Well, I'm a fucking vegetarian shill. I sell Aleister Crowley in my bookstore. I do things that other people will, burn me at the stake for if they had the chance. So I'm a little forgiving when it comes to people who, that being said, I'm very critical too, but whatever. I like Alex Jones. He's just funny. Same with Trump. Just have a good time. Just watch the bread. Just watch the bread in the circus and just. No, just kidding. But they're
It's the God show. Yeah.
They have charisma. They are, they're, what can we say? Just enjoy, just chill.
None of us is perfect. None of us has all of the answers, but everyone has something to offer. We're all a piece of the puzzle. And like speaking directly to the audience, like everybody, right? Like think about how much more you know now than you knew 5 years ago. We're all always getting smarter. We're all always adapting. So like Brett was saying, give grace. Like do you want God to give you grace? Then the best thing you can do is give others grace.
I'm just laughing because I see the comment pop up. It says corporations sold you veganism, and I see Dr. Longo just seething like, I will tell you.
Yeah. Listen, the only person who sold me veganism is your mom when she was making me dinner last week. Okay. Me and your mom went out for some vegan takeout. Ooh. No. Did corporations sell Play-Doh veganism? You just got dunked on. Vegetarians have been teaching people about truth, light, okay, fighting corruption. Here's another thing, okay. Roll up my sleeves for this one. Nobody has fought Zionism and Jewish supremacy on the world stage like vegetarians. 1,000 years that goes back. And I'd guess a lot further. It goes back to Jesus, actually, but that's another conversation you guys can't handle. Oh, he ate fish. Oh, he loved fish. Jesus ate so much fish. Whatever.
I saw you just seething. I was like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Dude, someone commented and gave her the celery stalk.
I guess the corporations sold Nikola Tesla vegetarianism. I guess they sold Nietzsche vegetarianism. I guess the corporations with their corporations sold Adam and Eve vegetarianism.
Pythagoras.
Yeah. I know you watch the show and I appreciate the support, but you're not, we can do better than this. We can think stronger and greater than this. That's not well thought out. I'm vegetarian because I think it's the best decision I ever made. And the two greatest truth seekers who set me on this path were both vegetarian. That the proof's in the pudding, okay? Nobody's gonna fight Zionism harder than vegetarians. Why? Because the ultimate problem is not banking. It's not this. It's not that. Oh, it's really complicated. I'm quoting Nick Fuentes. No, it's not complicated. It's blood. It's blood. They print the money. They print the money. You think they just do this to get money? They print the money. They want blood. They want the things that come along with blood: agony, pain, torture, the opposite of good. If you can't see the parallels between, rabbinical animal sacrifice, neo-pagan animal sacrifice, ancient pagan animal sacrifice, guys, it's blood. Let's reduce our blood intake as much as possible, because blood is adrenochrome. Flesh, meat are corpses, and whatever. I don't know if Brett's vegetarian or not. Well, he's along for the ride. He's coming, but
I did maybe around like 2018-ish. That time I did dabble in veganism and vegetarianism, but ultimately I did decide it wasn't for me. And I do respect you as a vegetarian, though. You're like, yeah, I don't respect you. Choke on a chicken bone.
No, I'm over that.
Everyone's on their own path.
Yeah, but that's all right. I better see some guns, though. I mean, you better look like Vin Diesel.
I'm mogging you.
All right.
I told you.
All right. Let's get back to Moses Levy. Okay.
Sure.
Moses Levy, his family's expelled from Spain, goes to Morocco, expelled from Morocco, go to the Caribbean. They become rich, successful, lumber, timber, shipping, all that. Then something happens. What do we know about Moses Levy? He was very religious, a studious guy. He cared about the Torah and the Talmud. He's one of the world's leading Zionists. I don't know if the timing works out on that, if that's the right term to use in his day, but he was, by modern definition, a Zionist, one of the first proponents of Zionism in America, like political Zionism. So something happens to Moses Levy that changes his life. He has an epiphany. I don't know if it was an illness or a dream or just an epileptic episode or something. He had a vision where he kind of lost his faculties, or he heard God speaking to him, and he was never the same man after that. Changed him. Conviction. Now, what did this voice tell him? What did God tell him? He didn't say, hey, cut the slavery out. He didn't say, hey, go vegan or vegetarian or whatever. He didn't say anything like that. According to Moses Levy, God told Moses Levy to go start the New Jerusalem in Florida. The New Jerusalem in Florida. What would this be? Guys, it was a Jewish utopia funded by the Warburgs. That's right. The Warburg Rothschild adjacent family who's married into the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds, excuse me. The Rothschilds, you got that Mossad bug in my throat.
Mercury retrograde, bro.
Yeah. Essentially, the New Jerusalem, I was going to say the Rothschilds don't really do business in America. They present themselves as the Warburgs. The Warburgs married into the Rothschilds. The Warburgs were who represented the Rothschilds in the what's it called? What was I just talking about?
I was reading.
You were talking about the Warburgs funding the New Jerusalem.
Yes.
Moses Levy in Florida.
Yep. Damn,
you're
I
saying
think,
that the Rothschilds don't directly do work
yo, I think we have some,
inside of.
I think we have some actual Mossad bots in the chat. Yo, get fucked, Mossad bot. I just banned your ass. I'm trying to dox people.
Well, inside
Really?
of the United States, that I guess they use the Warburgs as their agent. If you wanted to keep elaborating.
Yes, yes. So in the Jekyll Island Federal Reserve fiasco, that was the Warburgs representing the Rothschilds when those 6 to 8, men were in that room hashing out the Federal Reserve plan. The Warburgs were there, and the Warburgs had already married into the Rothschild family. Today, there's actually a lake in Florida called Lake Warburg, named after them. I think it's near UF, University of Florida. Another thing about Moses Levy, remember, he had this vision or this epiphany, heard this voice, and it told him to start a Jewish utopia in Florida. Well, guys, we can just close the history text. We can just close the textbook right there. We don't need to read anything. Just look around. I mean, the guy succeeded. The guy was successful. It may have taken some time. It may have taken some different iterations, but he was successful. And before that, there were not many Jews in Florida. After Moses Levy, this was the place to be. Moses Levy started his New Jerusalem plantation. I believe it was near Micanopy, Florida. But go ahead.
And if I could just to back up and provide more historical context to the point you just made about the Warburgs, because I think the financing is really pertinent. If you look up 1910, who was at the secret meeting on Jekyll Island that launched the Federal Reserve Bank? Paul Warburg was in attendance at that meeting.
Yes, and I believe Paul Warburg also had held an office at that time. He had either already been or was soon to be he had a role in the U.S. government. Or let me look it up. He was supposed to be the guy keeping financial schemes at bay. He was supposed to be the guy preventing some of this. Served as the second vice chairman of the Federal Reserve. He held something before that, though. Okay, he served as one of the original members of the Federal Reserve Board. No, he had a title before that, though. Okay, the National Monetary Commission. He gave advice. He was essentially telling them what to do because he was an expert. And Aldrich and Warburg were in cahoots for years before the Federal Reserve was kicked off. And this was of course, go watch my Jekyll Island video if you want to hear the full story on this. Rockefellers, Goodyear, who else? Pulitzer, the Pulitzer family, all these families, they say about a third of the world's wealth would vacation at Jekyll Island before World War II, leading up to World War II. Yeah, Britt?
Yeah, no, I always have so many thoughts about Jekyll Island. I was thinking Nelson Aldrich, who was one of the most powerful senators in the United States of America and really helped spearhead the legislation that ultimately became the Federal Reserve Bank. His daughter married the son of John D. Rockefeller, right? And that's why Nelson Aldrich Rockefeller years later would become the vice president of the United States. So he literally married his daughter almost into, I think the Rockefellers we could rightly consider basically royalty. And through that arranged marriage, I would assume they took over the monetary system of the United States of America. And, you know, I saw that you had your series on Jekyll Island, and I was very curious to ask you because I haven't had the chance to watch it yet, and I need to check it out. But really interesting, when I was reading the autobiography of Teddy Roosevelt, he talks about during the Spanish American War in Cuba, there were a lot of tensions. And he actually wrote in his autobiography, and he was mocking them, that a bunch of rich people on Jekyll Island were really nervous. And they sent government officials to the White House, and they were demanding that they'd be sent protection. So Roosevelt mocked them. He said, sure, we'll send you a naval boat and we'll make sure that you're safe. And he intentionally sent them this tiny little naval boat that couldn't do anything. And he did it to mock them. And that's really interesting. One, because it's the Jekyll Island families. And, you know, now looking back, we know what a center of power that was and, you know, what that would become. And the other part of it is Teddy Roosevelt really was the last president to take on these powerful families. If you think about it, I mean, he broke up Rockefeller's monopoly. He broke up JP Morgan's railroad monopoly, or the holding company that he used to control all the railroads. And those were the families that were on Jekyll Island. And I just thought it was funny that he was mocking the scared rich people on Jekyll Island in Georgia. And I do wonder if he even realized he knew it was rich people. I wonder if he realized it was the very rich people that he wound up taking on.
Yeah. Merlin, any thoughts?
Oh, dude, I mean, not on that specifically, but I got some for later.
Okay.
I got some etymology stuff I want to share too before we close. I don't know how long we're gonna go for, but
okay. You think it'll be best to
if I could just one more thing, because
no, we're not closing.
Okay, cool.
I'm allergic to black pills. I hate them. There's nothing useful about them. I mean, if I were on a football team and someone on the team said to me, oh, well, we can't win, then get off my team. You don't belong here, right? When the Patriots were down 28-3 to the Atlanta Falcons, I don't think anyone looked at Tom Brady and said, well, we can't win, because that would have been the end of them, right? They knew from the confidence in his eyes that the only option they had was to fight.
Yeah, you're not picking. It's a bad analogy for the black pillars because they're all instantly going to go.
Everything's fake.
NFL's rigged.
Don't you know it was all fixed? Whatever. All right. So the point is, Michael Jordan. I don't care. The point is that great winners aren't quitters, and they never have that black pill in them, no matter how much they're down. And when we look at American history, we've been taught through the awake community that everything is black pill, that everyone was bad. But the truth is that America was forged by fantastic people. And Teddy Roosevelt, like his politics or not, he was kind of a force of nature. But right, that's an example of that he took on the Rockefellers and he took on JP Morgan and Wall Street and that powerful banking trust. And you can go back through American history and you will find Henry Ford and Charles Lindbergh and Andrew Jackson and George Washington and person after person who were incredible human beings. And it's so important. And you and I do the homeschool thing together. I never want to lose sight of making sure that one, society is aware of what a special place we come from. And two, especially for us, that our students are aware of what an amazing place and what an amazing ancestry we come from.
Totally. Shout out Henry Ford, another Florida legend, also retired to Florida with his buddy Thomas Edison. Another good, both great vegetarians, by the way. Okay. Both genius vegetarians who stood up against, well, at least Ford stood up against Zionism. I don't know what Edison thought, but you know, Nikola Tesla was a vegetarian, and he impressed Thomas Edison so much that Edison reluctantly went vegetarian to be more like Tesla. He thought, okay, this is going to get me on. This is going to get me on his level, right? Well, I guess he stuck with it for the most part, but Henry Ford certainly stuck with it. Henry Ford was a passionate vegetarian. He would, I think he even printed like recipes and stuff like that. He loved, food and cooking. And I also owe a lot to Henry Ford because I lived in my van for 4 years, and the whole camping in your car thing, that's Henry Ford. Henry Ford took the first road trip in America. Started in Florida, and they went to one of the World's Fairs in like California, from Florida all across the country in some Ford cars. And it was a big, they had a lot of fun. But
Henry Ford, in my opinion, is the greatest non-founding father American in the history of our country. And I strongly recommend that everyone, one of the best books, one of the most inspirational books I've ever read is the autobiography of Henry Ford. And in that book, he talks about his love of nature, and this probably is where his vegetarianism comes from, his love of nature, and he was absolutely obsessed with his trees and his garden. And Ford was just an incredible man. He did incredible, real philanthropic stuff where he had the Ford Engineering School, which was not only a 4-year, essentially college education, best education in the world at the cutting edge of what manufacturing was then. Henry Ford was the Industrial Revolution, so he was the cutting edge of it. Not only did he offer a free school to anyone that wanted to go, but he actually paid his students while they were learning. But here was the kicker. He put the money that he paid them into an account for them that they could only access after they graduated. And the reason he did that is he didn't want them to waste it being young and dumb. And when they graduated, they would not only have a college degree, cutting edge, but they would have enough money at that time from that 4 years to purchase their first home, and they would have a high-paying job waiting for them at Ford, or if Ford didn't have a job for them at the end of those 4 years, didn't matter. That education from Ford, every manufacturing plant in the country, if not the world, wanted to hire them. And Ford, I mean, he was incredible. He had the Ford English School. So when immigrants came from Ellis Island, Henry Ford demanded that they assimilate. They weren't allowed to speak a foreign language. If they wanted to work for Ford, they had to go to his English school, where they had to study the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, U.S. civics, and what it means to be an American. And he would host these melting pot ceremonies after his immigrant employees from Ellis Island would graduate, where they would start on one side of a stage. And there's pictures of the stage. It's incredible. And they would start with their native flags. They would drop the flags, walk across the stage in front of a big crowd, pick up an American flag. And it was a rite of passage, symbolism that they have now assimilated into American culture, and they have embraced our way of life. And when you want to talk about how far gone, how far we have fallen from the greatness that this country was, well, look no further than the Ford melting pot ceremonies and what we expected of immigrants when they came to the great country that is the United States of America.
Wow. I didn't know any of that. And I still love the guy before, like him even more now. Someone asked, did Henry Ford write books? Well, not exactly. He wrote some pamphlets. He wrote some, maybe he did write books. I don't know. He wrote some pamphlets that were pretty controversial. Go look them up. Henry Ford pamphlets. Henry Ford, what were they called?
That was a newspaper that he wrote.
Oh, were they articles in a newspaper?
Yeah, it was a newspaper that he published.
Okay. I think they were eventually published printed in a pamphlet version. Henry Ford.
I think you're correct. It's the international pamphlet.
The International J.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it did.
Pamphlets.
Yeah. It would make sense though if it started out in the newspaper. But so, man, we got 1,400 in the chat, guys. Thanks everyone for being here. I think only like 500 of those are in YouTube. The rest is on X.
Nice.
And Rumble as well. But what's up, y'all? Thanks for being here. Make sure you spark up. Pour yourself a little something. Pour yourself some liquid sunshine. Real quick, I want to get through the whole Moses Levy story. Moses Levy goes to Florida because God told him to. God told him to open a Jewish utopia called New Jerusalem. Well, guys, did you know that Christopher Columbus almost did the same thing? Christopher Columbus was looking for a new promised land. In his own words, he called it New Promised Land and then eventually New Jerusalem. He literally called the Americas New Jerusalem. They didn't know what was what, though. He didn't know, Florida's here, Mexico's there. They didn't have all those details yet, but he was close enough. He was on the money. Moses Levy comes around, dead set on Central Florida. He buys all this land, 100,000 acres. That was a lot. That was a lot back then. And Florida was like uncharted, like unsurveyed. He bought all this crap, all this land. Some of it was like impenetrable. But you want to know something crazy? Disney World, guys. Disney World. If Moses Levy never sold his land or his family held on to that land, Disney World would be on Moses Levy's property. Talk about Epstein and the Disney connections, the Virgin Island, Disney cruise lines, stuff like this. Oof, there's a whole nother rabbit hole there.
Yeah.
But so Moses Levy, he starts this New Jerusalem. What is it? It's a Jewish utopia that he wants all the Jews from around the world, Sephardic, Ashkenazi, he wants them all to move to Florida in mass and create a Jewish utopia. With an asterisk, okay? It wouldn't be a utopia for the slaves who were doing all the hard labor, because the plans were that this would be a slave. It was a plantation, Yeah, go look this up, guys. New Jerusalem, Moses Levy. Also, Moses Levy, he ironically was one of the world's leading anti-slavery writers, influencers. He would give debates and speeches in England, especially. He did most of his anti-slavery, most of his emancipation work in Europe. He would promote, or he would be anti-slavery in Europe. Then he'd get to America, kind of, take off his mask and be like, yeah, all right, get back to work, boys, And that's how Moses Levy conducted himself. So it's convenient for him that he's often remembered as an abolitionist. But how can you call a guy an abolitionist when he's actually using slaves to do his labor? And he is making plans for them. And then his son goes on to be America's second largest slaveholder. Also, David Levy was apparently anti-slavery for a time, and then he just shut up about it. But crazy. So they, hate to use the word, but they have been playing both sides of the slavery issue since day one, or almost day one, So yes, they've been, whatever. So the Yulees are in Florida. Moses brings his 10-year, I think he was 10 years old, young kid, brings David. David was born in the Virgin Islands. He brings his son, David, and they get to work. Oh, one thing. Florida was Spanish territory. And then it was handed over to America, to the United States, and it became American territory. When that happened, there was a deal that was made. I don't know if it was the president or the governor or who, but they came up with this deal to get people to settle in Florida because they needed people to settle in Florida. When the Spanish left Florida, they took most of the people with them, most of the Spanish and a lot of the Indians too, and a lot of slaves. When fuck, what was I saying? I forgot what I
You
was
were saying how when they left Florida, they had to get people to move there. Essentially, they had to give them some incentive.
Yeah, the Spanish left Florida almost empty. And when the Americans took it over, they wanted English speakers, ideally, but European, to go settle it. You know, we need people there or else someone's just going to come take it, you know? Countries do that today. You know, they'll pay you to go settle some remote area, right? So Moses Levy, he hears about this plan that the United States is planning to adopt Florida, make it an American territory, and the conditions are that anybody in Florida at midnight, when it goes into effect, the changing of the guard, you know, if you're in Florida, then the hour that it switches over from Spanish territory to U.S. territory, you will be granted permanent U.S. citizenship for all of your descendants, you and your descendants. That's a pretty good deal, right? Moses Levy catches wind of that. And I don't know what the timing is. You know, it's pretty funny. God told him to go start this utopia. Oh, well, that U.S. citizenship offer is looking pretty good. What was that, God? You want me to go become a U.S. citizen? All right, let's go. Whatever the real motivation was, he goes to Florida, and in the nick of time, he becomes an American citizen. Just in the nick of time. Allegedly. Because when David, his son, 30 years later or whatever, 40 years later, would go on to become a senator, well, they traced back his family history to this move to Florida, and they said, hang on, the dates aren't quite right on this. Your dad says he was in Florida when the deal was struck, but the evidence doesn't show that. The evidence shows your dad might have actually been 2 weeks late to the deal, and therefore you're not an American citizen. Whatever the dispute was there, it got settled, and David Yulee, went on to become a successful senator. But that is true. That Moses Levy, maybe his citizenship was fraudulent, that he lied about being there in order to become an American citizen. So, but then now he's in Florida. He starts his operation, the New Jerusalem, and they put out the call. It was the Warburgs who put up much of the money and did much of the recruiting. Moses Levy was wealthy. Moses Levy was very wealthy. But when he heard this vision, or this voice of God, and had this vision, he allegedly stepped away from much of his wealth, and it either dumped it all into the land, dumped it all into the project, but he was very, very low on cash for a time. The Warburgs were helping out. By the end of his life, he was doing A-okay. He was back in control, very wealthy by the time he died. But his son goes on to be David Yulee. Moses Levy, remember we said he dropped the name? David Yulee, he becomes a lawyer very early on. Lawyers. Back then, most lawyers were Freemasons. He becomes a Freemason. He becomes one of the more prominent Freemasons in Florida, and he eventually goes on to be the leader of a lodge. David Yulee, this is our guy. Well, sometime around being elected to the Senate, he changes his name back to the original, back to his dad's original family name, which was
Yulee?
Yes, thank you.
With an
Yulee
I.
with an I. But David Yulee doesn't spell it that way. He spells it with an E and an E. Why? That was not how it was spelled before. And you could say maybe that's like Americanizing it. Is one letter or two letters more complicated? E, I is an I, right? Everyone knows, whatever. Doesn't matter, but it's a beginning to something. It's a beginning to a pattern that we're going to see through some of Florida's greatest mystics, men of mystery, and people interested in these exact theories. David Levy Yulee, who's a Freemason and chose 3-3 as Florida's birthday, put E into his name instead of the I. I think that's a tip of the hat to the Freemasons and a 33 backwards, EE. Well, what else? Let me add a couple more to that list. Ed Lead Scownen. You guys have heard of the Coral Castle?
Oh yeah, CC.
Coral Castle, CC, 33. Do you guys know? Hey, Merlin, can you search zip code?
Sure can.
For the Coral Castle.
Coral Castle zip code, and we're looking at 330033.
The zip code for the Coral Castle is 33033. Maybe that's why he had to pack the whole thing up and move locations, even though it weighed thousands of pounds. Who knows? Go look up Ed Lead Scownen. Go look up the Coral Castle, guys. We don't know if he was fully a Freemason, but he was familiar with the arts and the sciences of Freemasonry. Coral Castle, Florida. Look it up. Yeah, that one.
Florida.
Well, Ed Lead Scownen, he was from Latvia, and he moved to America in the, 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, around there. Started working in the 50s, I think, on this. No, I'm wrong. 30s to 50s is when he worked on it, I believe. His name originally was Lead Scownen. Lied. When he gets to America, he changes his name too. Leed. Lead Scownen, with a 33 in the middle. Coral Castle, CC, zip code's 33033. And yet, I'm sure there's someone fucking out there who's going to say, you guys are fucking schizophrenic. You guys are making connections where there's no connections. Probably not, but
go get your booster, bro.
Yeah. So,
dude,
go ahead.
Look at this image, man. Look at the symbolism that Coral Castle is just dripping with, just like the architecture. How cool is this, man? Sorry to nerd out over, but like this, you got the little Saturn over here. You got the moon, a square, and a ruler. But again, that pointed hat almost. It's crazy, dude.
Yeah, it's a right angle. It's a compass. That might even be like a golden rectangle that it's on top of. Probably not. I don't know. But all of this is Masonic imagery, alchemical imagery, mythological. Planets are the gods at the end of the day. And I was just going to say, there are 3 stars of David in the Coral Castle. One's obvious, one's less obvious, and the third is kind of hidden.
And Freemasons take pilgrimages here, don't they?
Yes, that's true. So, Coral Coral Castle is where so if you're a Freemason, you're encouraged to go to the Great Pyramids at least once in your life. You know, you don't have to, but you're encouraged, and they oftentimes lodges will make it easy for members to go do that. You know, they want to take field trips and stuff. But for those who can't go to the Great Pyramids, they settle for Coral Castle. And, you know, it's not just settling. Like, a lot of people do both. But Coral Castle is the second destination for Freemasons in America. Second destination in the world, but for American Freemasons. There's a North Pole star here. There's a North Pole, like a telescopic viewing stone that proves, you know, geocentrism.
Oh yeah.
Hey Brett, are you flat, round? Where are we at?
Earth?
Yeah.
You know, my position is I really don't know. I'm open to both theories. You know, people get into the scientific side of it, and you know, my question is, why don't they just take more pictures? So, you know, I do find that to be suspect.
Well, it costs millions of dollars to paint those pictures. It costs the AI detection software is getting a lot better today. So, but yeah. Well, here Ed Leetskounen changed his name to have a consecutive 3-3 EE. Okay, who else? E. Calloway. That's right. Can you search LV Edison Calloway, please? LV Edison Calloway.
Oh.
The governor of Florida didn't deserve, okay? The governor that we weren't ready for.
Why is there no Wikipedia page for this guy? That's so weird.
You can look up the 1936 Florida governor.
Florida gubernatorial.
Yeah, race. Wikipedia. Boom. There you go. E. Calloway. Did they take his fucking picture out?
Dude.
Yeah,
they did. That's crazy.
That's messed up. Yeah. Well, this is the guy who believed Florida was the Garden of Eden. He wrote a book about it. I'm helping to republish that book as we speak. But he believed Florida was the Garden of Eden. He meant it. He was dead serious. He provided some of the greatest evidence ever for an actual like Garden of Eden site. E. Calloway preferred for most of his adult life to be called E. Calloway. Well, he was also a Freemason, by the way, and a Shriner. Maybe he learned some secrets when he was there. Maybe they all know that Florida's the Garden of Eden. But E. Calloway. So those are three of the big, mystics in Florida's history. David Levy Yulee, not really a mystic, but mystically minded. And the point is they had the information and the motivation to make a simple letter change like that. It may seem silly to us, but it makes all the difference to them who live in a world of gematria and, symbolism and all this. So, well, all right. We're over 2 hours here. There's so many different branches you can follow. The Yulee family, Gopher Hole down. Are there any big ones that I'm missing? Like Epstein Island, we talked about that. Education, I guess we didn't really talk too much. Yulee, him and his father both pushed for public education in Florida. Can you go back to the Yulee?
David Levy?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's it mentions it. Not that education. Let's see.
So he was, I think, the minister of education, or like the chairman of education, or whatever, for education commissioner. There we go.
Yeah, this is Moses Levy, actually. He was education commissioner, and he led the first campaign for free education in public schools in the territory of Florida.
Right. And now they're saying only Florida, but Horace Mann wouldn't come till a little bit later, I believe. Horace Mann, public schools. Horace Mann was dead by 1859. Let's see when he got started. (1837). Boom. Mogged. The Yulees were first. Okay.
Yep.
The Yulees had their tentacles in public education before Horace Mann. I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say we only know about Horace Mann because they don't want you to know about the Yulees, right?
I have to put out a challenge to you as the owner of a bookstore, but it would be amazing to get our hands on the textbooks that the Yulees had in those schools and what they were using.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
Dude, check out this etymology real quick. So the word education literally comes from child rearing, or what's this? The training of animals. So to be educated is to literally be trained like an animal. And we looked at this earlier, right? The similarities between that and that, right? And like in public school, are you sat in your stall? Are you corralled around like an animal pretty much and trained to be docile? Right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Oh yeah. The slavery fast food education system pipeline is stronger and faster flowing than we think, you know? But yeah, what else? What else is there? I think we covered most of it, and there's certainly a lot more material for further episodes and stuff, but well, guys, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just really fascinating. And kind of like I said at the beginning, there is such an emphasis put on teaching or educating, as we'll say, with the etymology up here, young people about slavery. And of course, what they teach is a cherry picked fake narrative that is designed to divide people. And it's so fascinating that the names of the people involved in the actual slave trade have been hidden from history, because you would think that would be very pertinent to what they want taught. And kind of like the Knights of the Golden Circle, I'm always interested in what's not taught, right? Because there's so much you could do with history with spinning narratives. So to have you lay it out that, this was a prominent family involved in the early slave trade, that the slave trade actually came through Jeffrey Epstein's island and then to Florida. And that family played a major role in the settling of Florida and establishing of public education. It's just a great historical antidote that really helps put everything together about what was going on at this time, when the new world was being settled. And I guess if there was one more thing I would say that maybe the people want to hear you cover before we go is, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think everyone would love to hear you talk about the Monsanto family.
Ooh. Yeah. Dude, yes. The Yulees were not alone. They were not a isolated case, okay? They weren't the exception. They were like the pinnacle or the epitome, right, of this lifestyle, this culture that had been boiling in the Caribbean. The Monsanto family, yep, that's right. The chemical GMOs, Roundup, fertilizers, all this crap. That Monsanto company also goes back to some of these same Sephardic Caribbean families. One in particular, the Monsantos. Now, what was his name? Joseph Queenie. He marries into the Monsanto family, and that throws a ton of people off. A ton of people. That's like where most people lose the trail, right? Or just disconnect. But when we make that connection, you see he didn't just opportunistically marry into a family, it's the same goals being met, or it's the same initiative being undertaken, where the Monsanto family, just for example, another one of these slaveholding families in the South, when the Civil War breaks out, Civil War ends, well, slaveholding is not an option anymore. What do? You essentially move over one spot on the assembly line, or over one spot in the supply chain. You move over one spot in the same industry. Oh, that one's illegal. Okay. Oh, cocaine's illegal. Well, let's get into Novocaine. Let's get into right. That's how it happened. When slavery went illegal, they then switched to, instead of having people grow the food, planting, giving people poison seeds to plant themselves, stuff like that. Yeah, Brett.
Can we just talk about how it's? I mean, I haven't looked into this, but it's a little funny to think about because they definitely do it. But I would bet that Monsanto is one of those major corporations that lobbies the government to make sure that they let illegal immigrants in so they can use cheap labor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
it's just
100%.
hilarious. I mean,
oh yeah, they'll
you almost got to tip your cap to them. You're like, you can't stop us.
they'll take yeah. Well, the Monsantos, they were expelled from New Orleans and then came to Florida. So they actually spent a lot of time in Florida, in Pensacola too. And then a guy by the name of Queenie married into the family and started the Monsanto business. So, if slaves, you can't use slaves anymore. Okay, let's get into seeds. Okay, let's get into pesticides. Let's get into, it's the same ballpark. So you got the Monsantos, you got the Yulees, you got the Benjamins. Benjamins are the cousins to the Yulees. Judah Benjamin is where all the gold from the Civil War ended up. In Judah Benjamin's pockets or buried at the Yulee plantation. Go look it up. It's this crazy like treasure. What do you call it? People who are like looking for treasure hunters, treasure maps. All this stuff ties into the KGC and the slavery, the Civil War, them not wanting to let go of slavery, them not wanting. But Judah Benjamin sold out Jefferson Davis, abandoned him, took all the money, and then hid most of it with the help of David Yulee. Go look it up. David Yulee, Confederate gold. Just search that and it'll blow your mind. But, oh yeah, Judah Benjamin, the ancestor of Owen Benjamin, of course, and Moses Levy, the ancestor of John Levy, the Tartaria retard. All right, guys. That's a lot to fit into one show. Sorry if I was racing around. It's a lot to cover here. But yeah, I've been talking about this on other people's shows. Haven't really focused on it on my own channel with kind of some evidence to back it up. So I hope you appreciated it. We got 1,600 people in the chat. That's huge. I know a lot of those are Brett's supporters. Thanks for you guys being here. Shout out to Merlin. Here, let's do this. Go to YouTube, guys, and everyone go subscribe to Wise Wizard Merlin. Go subscribe right now. All right. Oh, and also, Get that chat flying. Come on. Get that chat flying. I want to see, let's see an orange dump. Tangerine tsunami, okay? Clementine, treat me like the Rizzler. When I want the chat to start jumping, get it going. All right, shit's stale. Shit's staying completely still.
Got a couple oranges in the chat. Couple oranges. There we go. We got some oranges. It's just delayed a little bit. There's like a 20-second delay on the stream. You're good.
Oh shit. Good point. Yeah. Get that shit bumping. Oranges in the chat, yo. Everyone go subscribe to Wise Wizard Merlin now that you're looking at the screen. Go subscribe to Merlin's channel. Catch some great astrology. And you can catch him here every Saturday too on the Casting Couch Astrology Show. Give him a subscribe. He deserves it. Good videos recently. And yeah, guys. Also, go subscribe to my backup channel, Dr. Narco Longo. This one. Also astrology content. Look at that. Look how long my hair was. Guys, I just got a terrible haircut today.
Crash out, bro.
Fucking butchered. I got chopped. I'm chopped now.
But they were polite about it when they messed up, right?
No, they kicked me out of the salon actually because I swear to God. Swear to God. Got kicked
Longo
out
was
of
crashing out in the store. He had to get escorted out by the cops.
I got kicked out of I literally got kicked out of a woman's hair salon today. Not kidding.
That's fantastic.
Well, I don't know. It's too much. I don't know. Too much honesty and masculinity going on for them. She gave me a terrible haircut. I told her it was terrible, and they kicked me out. But that was the harshest word I said. All I said was terrible, and I said much nicer things leading up to that. But
she didn't like your tone.
She gave me a haircut.
Dr. Shortco.
Yeah. No, she just did a terrible job. She gave me like a bob, like straight across, like just like bucket cut. Okay. And I was like, hey, this is like a nice salon. Like, can you this doesn't look good. It looks like I did it, And she's like, and she did it like one more time. At this point, she's like cutting my hair out of spite. It was like fucking butchering it. And she goes, what about now? Do you like it? And I'm like, it's terrible. And we went back and forth a little bit. There was like customers in there. They were all ganging up on me, telling me, oh, it looks great. It looks great. I said, shut your bitch ass up. But no, I didn't say it. But they did ask me to leave. That actually happened. So
go for the Merlin cut, bro. Nice and easy. Save on shampoo.
Yeah, it can always be worse, I guess.
Whoa.
Yeah, between both of your haircuts, I'm just mocking you both.
Oh fuck.
Beautiful Italian hair.
Yeah. She's lucky I don't sick my 70,000 subscribers on her fucking Yelp account. I would never do such a thing.
Be careful. That actually is a crime, so be careful with that.
Yeah, I was totally 1,000,000% joking. Guys. I haven't told you the name of the salon, so no worries.
They're good people. We wish them well. Friend of the show.
No, they're persona non grata. Okay.
Oh.
But all right. That's a good place to wrap it up. Oh, Brett, where can people check you out? Where's your preferred sites, links?
It's right in the name. ClassicalLearner.com. That's ClassicalLearner.com. And I am Classic Learner on X. I'm Classical Learner on Instagram, Cubs to Bears books on Instagram, and you can find all our stuff there. And like I said, the most based and red-pilled education company in the world.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
Go get him on all his outlets, people. And Classical Learner, if they want to watch my class, where can they go?
So right now you have live classes going every Monday, and
Yes.
we're currently working on the pre-recorded version of those. So I am waiting for Dr. Longo to get me 2 videos on that, and we'll be able to start posting them, and we'll get them up there.
Okay. So it's
But
only
yes, you guys could get the kids right in Dr. Longo's class. It's every Monday at what time? I think you're 1 o'clock, and you get access to all our other classes as well. And then we get the pre-recorded versions up, or the recorded versions up, and those are nice and edited, and they get the stock video, and just really good stuff. So, like I said, and we're not just the the red pill historical gravy, but we do a ton of stuff with entrepreneurship, with financial literacy. I just taught a course on entrepreneurship, and our students sold stuff on Facebook Marketplace. And I had 3 students under the age of 13 make sales this week of $500, $250, and $200. So we do all types of cool stuff, and I definitely recommend it.
Hell yeah. Raising some young Yulees.
Yeah, if you're gonna homeschool your kids, check out Classical Learner for sure. And it's like very reasonably priced too, as far as I'm aware.
For now.
Hell yeah, guys. Go watch, click all the links, get your kids enrolled. Okay. If you got kids out there, I know a lot of you do, you bring them to the bookstore. Get them enrolled in this, and it'll be fun. And one of the things Brett said to me before I started teaching a class was, it will restore your faith in humanity, or it'll boost your picture of the future, right? Because the kids in these classes, they are unplugged from the matrix. They not just like, oh, I know 9/11 was fake. Oh, I know. It's not about just knowing that. It's about the mindset. It's about how they're eager to learn. That none of them act like they're forced to sit in the classroom. I was blown away that the kids are that engaged and that they like it, and it's very rewarding, So, yeah, your kids will like it, I think, y'all.
The opposite of a black pill. That's good stuff.
Yeah. They're engaged. I was blown away. When I was in school, I was like, do not call on me. I'm not going up to I'm not going up to the front of the whiteboard. I'm not asking anything, I'm in and I'm out, keep my head down, try not to get into detention or whatever. But this is a whole different system. So, well, all right, guys. I think that's everything. Nice show tonight. Great information that not many people know about, and we're happy to spread the word about. And you spread the word about it too. If you guys want to clip this up, go for it. Clip the shit out of it, repost it, whatever. Some of my Yulee family clips are like, they just outperform everything else I've ever talked about, talking about the Yulees. So, and this live stream adds to that. This is like the second or third or maybe first most attended live stream I've ever done. And largely due to Brett too, but
I recently learned that there's opus.ai, and if you go to opus.ai, you can literally take the YouTube link from this video, drop it in there, and it will just produce like 15 shorts, and they're good. It's pretty impressive.
That's free?
I think you could try it out for free. I'm pretty sure.
Sweet. That's pretty cool.
Hell yeah. Well, all right, guys. Give me 1 second. Let me cue up some music here. What's next for you, Brett? Like, what's going on? You doing any shows soon or anything?
Oh, I don't know. I take them as they come. So hopefully Alex Jones wants to have me back because that would obviously be fun to do. And other than that, just getting ready and got a lot of big things going on. I just brought in Medieval Memory is going to be teaching a course for us. Real excited about that. I got the Alpha Path on YouTube. He's teaching a summer course for us on biblical masculinity. And if you watch this guy's channel, he's just great. He's a great leader of men. And I'm really happy to have him coming in for that. And just starting to get the summer session together and doing some good things. By the way, some big things going on happening with the AI now. And I just learned about Claude. And so now I have me and a couple of team members seeing if we could do some cool stuff with that too. So a lot of big things going on and excited to see where we could take it because I really want to blend classical education and Charlotte Mason and hands-on learning and everything that education should be, financial literacy, learning your rights, with the modern tools in a way that no one has before. And I think over the next 12 months, we're going to do some crazy stuff. Like we've been working at this for a few days and some pretty wild stuff we're doing with it in the background. So I can't even, where we're going to take it's going to be awesome.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, man. Merlin, what about you? Any streams coming up?
Yeah, big time. Got a few videos coming out soon and just working on getting the website up to get some astrology consults going basically. So
readings,
big things coming. Yeah, readings. Yeah, there we go.
Taking readings. Are you booking now through anywhere?
Not yet. Very soon.
Okay. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Peace. Adios. What was that? Oh. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
know I'm true. Yeah. Come on. Give it back what I want from you. So give it back. You know I'm true. Give it back what I want from you. So give it back. You know I'm true. Yeah.
Trying to write with nonstop pings, loops, and bops. That's where